Alison, let's go with Scoop of the Year. I'm biased, I'm going to call it that. The lockdown files. Hancock's plan to frighten the pants off the public. Not the best thing to have said in a WhatsApp. What do you make of it all? Because I know you've done so much work on this. You've done your Planet Normal podcast. You've been one of the few journalists who have voiced concerns about the lockdown from the very beginning. So your take is really intriguing.
Well, I guess you could say it's vindication, but it's a very bittersweet vindication, isn't it, when you actually find out. I always suspected that they were quoting the science and making things up as they went along to suit a political agenda. And what the Telegraph scoop this week has revealed is, I'm afraid, that's exactly what was happening. I think today's is the worst yet.
Yeah.
Matt Hancock, Project Fear, let's scare the pants off the public with the new variant, the Kent variant. Something we know, Camilla, is that viruses tend to get weaker, they get more contagious and they get weaker. But what's coming through today from this this WhatsApp is, oh, the naughty British public, maybe they're getting a bit complacent, maybe they're not behaving themselves and doing what Uncle Matt tells them. So now we're going to scare the pants off them by pretending this new variant is going to be even more lethal. Total lies. Absolute lies told by a government minister to the British people. This is hugely significant, a vast scandal, I think. But what we've seen is other journalists targeting their ire on Isabel Oakeshott.
Yes, because you pointed out, Julia Hartley-Brewer, I think, has written a piece in the Telegraph where she's basically said, you know, in what world is Isabel Oakeshott this story? This story is about 100,000 messages that reveal the decision-making at the heart of government policy that affected our lives and liberties. And yet there's this huge focus on Isabel, who, let's declare a personal interest, we both know her quite well. And, you know, the BBC and others have completely lost their minds over this, probably because A, they were out-scooped, and B, they weren't really on the money in the first place. Where was the journalistic scrutiny, apart from at the Telegraph and other newspapers, when all of this was going on?
I think it's very much that Julia's saying, you know, that other journalists, a lot of other journalists didn't do the job of being journalists. I'm sure lots of viewers, GB viewers, will have watched those Number 10 press briefings and thought, hang on, why aren't you asking, is this necessary? They were all saying, we need to lock down more. Why aren't you closing schools? One of the big scoops from the Telegraph lockdown files this week is that there was pressure to keep schools closed. Millions of parents wanted the children to go to school, you know. And I think for me, what comes through all these WhatsApps is a total lack of empathy at the top, in the inner circle, for the consequences that these terrible restrictions were having on children. Couldn't kiss their parents goodbye in care homes. You know, there were kids. We have over 1 million children on mental health waiting lists now. These policies, this is the worst policy in modern British history. And it was quite right of Isabel Oakeshott to betray Matt Hancock. Matt Hancock betrayed the British people.
What should happen? I mean, I have read your Twitter feed, Alison. What do you think should happen to Matt Hancock? I mean, let's appreciate he's not here to defend himself, and he has robustly defended himself against this. He says it's only a partial view, that the lockdown files don't tell the full picture. What do you think should happen to the former Health Secretary?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I'd like to look at criminal proceedings against some of these people.
Alison, for what? How can you do that? I mean, he'll be saying, I made these policy decisions in good faith. I saw data. Hundreds of thousands of people were going to die. You can't argue with the first lockdown, surely, when we didn't know the dangers of this virus and we had to protect ourselves, and indeed not just the elderly, but at the time we were seeing images from Italy and people were dying and they were in hospital corridors.
These WhatsApps don't date from that early period. These WhatsApps date from the end of 2020, when we had got a much clearer picture about what was going on. We've not only got Hancock saying, let's scare the pants off the public. Camilla, during the Second World War, the worst crisis our country ever faced in modern times, the government didn't use propaganda against the British people. These people, and we've got Simon Case, the most senior civil servant, saying, let's use fear/guilt on the British public. I think it's, I mean, I don't know. I look at the news programmes and I think, where is the outrage?
I know, it's interesting because